In June 2025, President Donald Trump issued a travel ban covering 19 countries, 12 under a full ban and 7 with partial restrictions. Athletes and coaches are exempt, but fans are not. With the 2026 World Cup just a year away, co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, the stakes are high. FIFA expects 6.5 million visitors and over $11 billion in revenue, much of it tied to US venues. Trump's policy now raises the question: will America lose billions while Canada and Mexico benefit? Iran has already qualified, and nations like Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, and Libya are still in contention, all covered by restrictions. Fans from fully banned countries, including Iran, Cuba, Haiti, Libya, and Sudan, will not be allowed into the US. Iran's team will play, but its supporters cannot attend. The impact extends further. Visa delays now stretch for months at US consulates, straining the system for all travelers. Even the State Department urges fans to apply as early as possible. The risk is clear. Matches in American cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, and New York could see far fewer international spectators. Tourism, hotels, restaurants, and local businesses stand to lose billions. What was meant as an America First measure could become a case of America loses first. Meanwhile, Canada and Mexico are preparing to seize the opportunity. Toronto and Vancouver will host 13 matches, backed by over $220 million Canadian in combined government investment. Toronto alone has budgeted $380 million for stadium upgrades, transit improvements, and training facilities. Analysts project nearly $4 billion in economic output for Canada and 25,000 new jobs. If fans bypass the US due to travel hurdles, those numbers could climb even higher. Prime Minister Mark Carney has emphasized openness and stability. Canada doesn't need to challenge Trump directly. By simply offering a smoother path for international fans, it becomes the safer and more attractive option. Mexico, with its own host cities, could also gain from diverted tourism. The contrast is striking. Trump's hard line risks undermining America's role as the centerpiece of the World Cup, while Canada and Mexico stand ready to welcome the fans who can't enter the US. The tournament may be remembered not just for soccer, but for the economic lesson. When one country closes its doors, others benefit. That dynamic extends beyond sports. In July 2025, Trump's ambassador to Canada called Canadians mean and nasty to deal with, not because of military threats or major trade disputes, but because ordinary Canadians quietly began boycotting US goods and travel. It started with tariffs on steel, lumber, and aluminum. Then came rhetoric about Canada taking advantage of America. The response wasn't loud protests, it was subtle but powerful. Canadians cancelled trips south. By midsummer, flights from Canada to the US dropped 26%, led by Alberta and British Columbia. Liquor boards cut orders for American alcohol, filling shelves with Canadian and European brands. Independent shops saw sales of Canadian-made goods double. What began as frustration became a movement, and Washington took notice. Provincial leaders amplified the message. British Columbia's premier said the boycott showed Canada's resolve. Ontario's Doug Ford pushed Ottawa to respond with dollar-for-dollar tariffs. Across the spectrum, premiers agreed Canada would protect its economy, even if it meant shifting spending habits. Not everyone in the US echoed Trump's tone. Soon after the ambassador's remarks, a bipartisan group of senators visited Ottawa, voicing concern over the fallout. States like Nevada and New Hampshire rely heavily on Canadian tourists, who had suddenly vanished. Local businesses felt the loss. Canadians didn't need to shout, their wallets spoke for them. By August 2025, the deeper clash was impossible to ignore. Auto workers in Windsor braced for job cuts. A family-run toy store in New York closed after decades in business. And Trump doubled down on tariffs, signaling no intent to ease his campaign. Former Canadian Trade Minister Mary Ng warned the 35% tariffs were unsustainable for both sides. Canadian exporters faced higher costs, but ultimately American manufacturers and consumers paid the price. She noted that over 90% of Canadian exports to the US still qualify as tariff-free under USMCA, giving Canada leverage. Ottawa has also deepened ties with Europe, Asia, and the CPTPP to reduce dependence on the US. Ontario launched a $1 billion emergency loan program for businesses hit hardest by tariffs, preventing layoffs and closures. The federal government pressed forward with diversification strategies, ensuring Canada had multiple paths forward. Meanwhile, US small businesses struggled. West Side Kids, a New York toy store sourcing 90% of its products from China, collapsed under the weight of new import costs. The Yale Budget Lab estimates that U.S. households will pay an additional $2,200 to $3,800 per year due to tariffs, burdens falling hardest on middle and lower income families. And now, even USMCA, the continent's trade pact, has been pulled into the storm. The agreement wasn't meant for review until 2026, but Trump has already threatened renegotiation. Washington's chief complaint: Canada's retaliatory tariffs on goods that should be duty-free. US officials now hint that the deal itself is in jeopardy. Canada is preparing for that fight with what Carney calls strategic patience. Rather than rushing to concede, Ottawa is strengthening rules of origin compliance, deepening partnerships with Mexico and Europe, and leveraging its vital exports of energy and critical minerals. If the US presses too hard, Canada holds cards America cannot easily replace. This trade clash has become more than a dispute, it's a test of endurance. Trump is pushing for quick concessions through maximum pressure. Canada is betting on long-term resilience, diversification, and leverage. The months ahead will determine whether this produces a new arrangement, or a major rupture in North American trade. Either way, the outcome won't just reshape tariff rates. It will define the balance of economic power on the continent for years to come. This is True State Report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.